It was upset city this weekend in college football. Texas A&M and Missouri come out on top over top 25 opponents. Clemson absolutely dominated the field. The Lakers captured title 17 with LeBron James taking home the MVP. And the NFL COVID season continues. And the season of hitting the field continues now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome to this episode of Hitting the Field. I am glad to be joined by Kyle DeWitt and Alex Funderburke to talk some college football. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
After this past weekend, I've realized a lot of things about college football, so I'm ready to get into it.
That's good. Alex, welcome back for the third week now. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Yep, and Alex, you're going to be joining me for the whole episode today. I appreciate that. We're going to be joined by Kennedy a little later in the show to break down some NBA action and some NFL from yesterday. But first, let's jump into the wild weekend of college football. There's so many topics to go at, but we're going to start with the University of Florida falling to Texas A&M 41-38 on a game-winning field goal. Kyle Trask, it looks like he's on an island out there in that Florida offense. Kyle, I'll just start off with you. What is wrong with Florida? Because they, as you said, are not playing to where they should be.
It's definitely not the offense. The offense has been one of the best offenses in college football, almost scoring 40 points a game. Kyle Trask playing at an almost Heisman level. And Kyle Pitts even playing at almost the Heisman level. He's the best tight end in college football. But it's that defense. It definitely showed yesterday. There's so many holes. There's so many injuries. That D-line, there's no depth in that D-line due to that defense. Those linebackers aren't playing to where they should be at normal Florida level. And that secondary, Marco Wilson's supposed to lead that secondary, and he got absolutely mossed on a deep post route yesterday to almost lose the game. So, it's just that defense. It's one of the worst defenses in the SEC. And as we know, the SEC hasn't played any defense as of any sort this year. So that's not a good feat at all.
Alex, is Florida, are they still a good team this year, or is A&M, the better team? Did the better team win on Saturday?
I think the better team won, but that being said, like I was saying, Florida's offense is elite, but what's going to keep them from succeeding in the long run is that defense. They're giving up 495 yards a game. Like, you can't have that and win games. Their offense is putting up 464, which is elite, but you're giving up almost 500. So if their defense can get going, I think Florida will be a threat. But until that happens, A&M was the better team Saturday, and I think A&M will continue to be the better team.
It's weird to say that Florida is struggling on defense because in years past, it's always been the offense can't get things going.
Yep.
Oh, if they just had an offense, they'd be good. Kyle, you think it's a mental block or, with the recruiting class coming in and then, off season, you don't really get to practice that much. Is that what's playing an effect on Florida this year?
I think it's mostly that the off season, that there wasn't really much. You've seen it around all of college football. There's like little to no defense being played by any team. And I think that's just because there was no spring, no summer. There was barely time for install, barely time any time to watch film from practice to correct issues. So it's like they're playing a preseason right now with these first 4 or 5 games. And I think that we'll start seeing defenses pick it up, especially in the SEC later on in the season. But it really sucks to see that there's no defense being played because I am a defensive-minded guy. So, and also, I think Dan Mullen has heavily recruited offense since he's been there. He was the offensive coordinator for Florida for his 2006 and 2008 national champion Florida Gators. So I think that, I'm not saying defense is being neglected in the recruiting stage, but I think that it was kind of like set off to the side since their defense has always been good. They always get defensive recruits, and I think it's starting to show now.
All right. Well, I want to hop to another SEC team, which actually happens to be our defending college football playoff champions. The LSU Tigers have now fallen to 1-2 on the season after Missouri had a goal line stand to take the game. Alex, what's going on with LSU? I think this just goes to show how much of a valuable piece Joe Burrow really was to that Tigers offense.
I think this is another case of really good offense and really bad defense. The LSU offense has been putting up 495 yards a game, but the defense is, 467 yards per game, and then the defense is letting up 495. So it's another case of if their defense can like turn this thing around, LSU might be a threat to do some stuff, upset some teams maybe. But until that defense gets around, it's hard to see LSU going anywhere. But getting stood up on the goal line 4 straight plays is not a good look for that offense at all.
I mean, you think you can just power through one play. Kyle, what was your big takeaway from the game on Saturday?
My big takeaway is that I still don't think that Missouri is really that good of a football team, but it just shows that how much of a downgrade LSU's taken out of last year. They had 8 defensive players drafted, and I think they had 6 defensive players sit out. So that really shows what they have to work with on the defensive side of the ball. And on offense, sometimes Miles Brennan's been playing great this season, don't get me wrong, but I think that you're seeing like how much of a loss Jamar Chase is to that offense, and also a loss of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. I mean, that run game really hasn't been getting going this season. Most of LSU's offense has been through the air, and I would have ran the ball 4 straight plays on the 1-yard line, but LSU and Ed Orgeron tried to get cute twice and pass once on the 1-yard line, and that's not going to win you football games. Not saying it's Ed Orgeron's fault, but trust your run game, even if it's been struggling.
I mean, you also don't know. I mean, in practice, you practice those good 2-yard plays, and maybe their best plays were pass plays that Missouri just stopped. But you mentioned it. We just mentioned it previously. Florida fell this week, and now next week, these two teams are going to match up in the Swamp, where Florida currently is 13.5-point favorites. Alex, is Florida going to cover, and are they going to win, or is LSU going to at least, cover the spread, or what do you see going into this game?
So doing some research on this game, these teams are mirror images of each other. LSU gets 467 yards per game on the offense. Florida gets 464. They give up 495, and Florida also gives up 495. So these two teams are equally bad on defense and equally good on offense. If LSU can get that run game going a little bit, I think LSU will win. If LSU can't get that run game going, I think Florida will win, but I don't think Florida will cover.
Kyle, I know you're a Florida fan. What are your thoughts going into this?
They're back in the Swamp this week. They should win this game on paper, but Florida will definitely not cover the spread. They're not going to win by 13.5 points. And whatever the over-under is, take the over. Please take the over if you want to bring home some money.
A little HTF bets preview for the week. You heard it. Bet the house on the over, which I can't blame you because the SEC, as you said, is the Big 12. It is pathetic.
on any SEC game. Always take the over. Because Vegas loves for the over-unders. They love to set it low for the SEC because they're always good on defense.
That's going to change soon.
Even if it's Missouri versus Vanderbilt, take the over.
Oh, man. I mean, it's been a weird season for the SEC, but let's jump over to the ACC, where Clemson is mountains above everyone else. They're on Mount Everest while everyone else is still on ground level. Clemson dominated Miami. It wasn't even close. So you blinked and Clemson had the ball again. Like, Miami had nothing going for them. Trevor Lawrence looked amazing. I think he got knocked out of the game 2 or 3 times and still came back. Alex, how unstoppable is Clemson this year?
I mean, you put the best quarterback in the country and the best running back on the country on the same team, and you're gonna have some amazing play. Travis Etienne's been balling 392 yards so far this year. Trevor Lawrence has also been balling 1,140 yards to 10 touchdowns. I mean, this Clemson team is as close to unstoppable as I've ever seen. Like, I don't know who can come close to beating them.
That's a fair point. Kyle, I mean, I don't know how you can argue that.
I know I can't argue that at all. Dabo Swinney even said before this season that this is the best Clemson team that he's ever had. And he's had some great Clemson teams with Deshaun Watson and even with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. And even with that defense being so young, they just play so well together as a unit. And that defensive unit is going to be absolutely elite for the next, 4 to 5 years. This is the next dynasty in college football. Even after Trevor Lawrence graduates, Dabo Swinney will find someone to replace him. And even whenever Travis Etienne graduates after this year, It's just next man up.
Well, not even that. But like the offense or the defense only gave up what? It was like 200 and some change of offense to Miami. I mean, that
They
defense
gave
is
up.
young and unstoppable.
They only gave up 9 first downs, and Clemson had 34.
Yep.
How do you win a game like
Like
that?
you don't.
Can I
You
throw in
don't.
something about Miami?
Go for it. I'm all for
I,
Miami slander.
I think Miami's the most overrated team in the country.
Yeah, someone
I
had to say it.
I
I
really
think
like De'Aaron King, but come on, the only 3 games you played were UAB, Louisville, and Florida State, and you were ranked number 7. Granted, I mean those are 3 FBS opponents, but those are not 3 good opponents. And Miami did look good against all 3, but right as soon as you stick them up against somebody good like Clemson, they get absolutely dogged, and it wasn't even close. That was not a 1 versus 7 matchup. That was a 1 versus 71 matchup in that game.
so. I think Miami is extremely overrated, but I think Notre Dame is more overrated.
That is
Um, Notre Dame is always overrated, just like Miami. And I think it's very hard to judge Miami's performance in this game because Clemson is so ahead of everybody. I think Clemson is going to do this to everybody, not just Miami.
even Notre Dame.
Even Notre Dame. They're going to smoke everybody they play. I don't think they're going to play a close game all season. But with Miami, I think they should be around like 20th. They should not have been 7th. But I don't think it's easy to judge Miami off of this game just because Clemson is leaps and bounds ahead of everybody in the country.
Well, you also have to think that Louisville lost by 2 touchdowns to Georgia Tech, and Miami only beat Louisville in a shootout game by 9 points. So
That is fair. That is fair.
I mean, but Georgia Tech barely beat FSU, and Miami kind of blew the doors off FSU. So it's kind of
Yeah,
like
it
you can
goes both
sit,
ways
you can
there.
sit and play it all day. It's kind of whoever shows up that week.
Yep.
But
I mean, I do think Miami's a pretty decent team, like 20th, like Alex said. But whenever Clemson's at home, no one can beat Clemson and Happy Valley. No one can.
you mentioned home, and I just want to quickly, COVID-19 still a thing. Is it me, or are these stadiums like way above what people are saying their capacity was supposed to be? Because I swear A&M had 100% capacity. That stadium was
Texas
loud.
A&M had way too many people there. You would have thought Texas cured COVID.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to move to Texas. They clearly don't have COVID.
Yeah.
That student section was absolutely full. There was not an empty seat in that student section right behind that Florida bench. And you saw how many delayed game penalties Florida had. And then Dan Mullen talking about after the game, well, Ron DeSantis opened up the whole entire state, so why can't we have 100% capacity for next week's game versus LSU? So crowd capacity definitely played a huge impact in that game. And even against Miami on Saturday night in Happy Valley, Clemson looked like they had about 50 to 75% capacity.
I mean, you can't argue that point is why you lost, because realistically there should always be fans at games. But it's just interesting to go to see, like, just point out that these stadiums are probably allowing more people in than they're supposed to be. But you know what? I don't go. I'm not getting coronavirus, so that's okay. Let's move on to the rankings and the playoffs and how the rest of the season is going to pan out, because the Big Ten and Pac-12 are going to be joining the rest of the nation pretty soon. We talked a little before the show, but I'll let you guys just go ahead and say it. Alex, what are your thoughts on the Big Ten and the Pac-12 going into the season?
The Big 12 and the Big Ten and the Pac-12 should not be allowed in the college football playoff. You're starting your season halfway through everyone else's season. You're only playing 8 games and 6 games respectively. No, you can't make the playoffs like that. And if they can make the playoffs, you need to expand it, because it's not fair to everyone who's playing 10 games, 12 games. It's not fair to a team like Cincinnati, who might be able to go undefeated. And if they do go undefeated and Ohio State is allowed in the playoff, they're not going to get in. So you got to, if you want the Big Ten in, which I get it, money, Ohio State is a big brand, expand the playoff to 8.
Kyle?
I completely agree. I mean, I've been one to think that this should have been an 18 playoff from the beginning, because there were so many good teams in the last couple of years that are 5, 6, 7 that probably should have got in before Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma, I don't think should have made the playoffs. Yeah, they rolled away with the Big 12, but you saw what happens every single time they make the playoff. They get absolutely dogged by whoever they play. The only close game they had wasn't really at Baker Mayfield. But I digress. I don't think that the Pac-12 should make it in, because I don't think that anybody's going to completely dominate their league for 7 weeks. I don't think any team is good enough to do that in the Pac-12 this season. if Ohio State runs away with it and literally dominates everyone that they play, they have to put them in. No matter money, no matter name brand. If they dominate everyone you play in your league, even if it's only 8 games, you got to put them in.
But then the question comes in, because like preseason, we're UCF based. So everyone was saying if UCF goes undefeated, what would their hopes be? So now I want to transition it to Cincinnati, who is the best team in the American as of right now. If it's a 11-0 AAC champion Cincinnati, are you going to put in a 8-1 Big Ten Ohio State champion? Or like what do you think the committee does there? Because are you going to reward playing 4 less games but being, in a better conference per se?
No, they're going to either throw in a 1-loss ACC like North Carolina, who if they lose in the ACC championship game, or they're going to throw in a 1-loss SEC champion or 1-loss SEC second place team. They're not going to throw in a winner of the Big Ten 8-1. They'd rather put in a second place in the two conferences that the two conferences that played a whole conference schedule.
Alex, do you agree with that?
No, I think the committee is going to put Ohio State in no matter what. As long as Ohio State only has 1 loss and they're undefeated, they're going to be in the playoff. It's just too big of a brand. At the end of the day, this is all about money. It's not about putting the best college football teams in there.
That's fair. I mean, I'm glad someone said it because I've had that mindset. But we've noticed every other professional, key that professional sport, except the NBA, has expanded their postseason this year. So why should college football not?
So with FBS, the FBS is the only level of college football where if you win your conference, you don't make the playoff. Every other level of college football, if you win your conference, you're in the playoff. So the FBS needs to wake up and get on the train. Because if you win your conference, no matter if it's Conference USA or the SEC, it's impressive and you deserve a shot.
I don't know. I don't want to see a Mountain West champion against Alabama. I don't.
I do. I'd love to see Boise go up against Bama.
I'd love to see it. Arkansas. I'd love to see Arkansas State go up against Alabama.
You guys want to see North Texas beat?
Well, you don't got to worry about North Texas. North Texas is terrible this year.
They lost to Charlotte the other day.
Yep, they're lucky. They're lucky. They have 1 win.
It creates chances for huge upsets.
Yep, it's just like March Madness.
The only problem with that is that every single team that is independent, like Notre Dame every year, or Army, like they have to join a conference then at that point, even though they would.
Yes,
Notre Dame plays in the NBC conference.
Yeah, the NBC. Right. Even they did correct. ACC this year to play an ACC schedule, so they can actually have a schedule.
Well, that is true because they would be playing COVID, which I think COVID wins every single time.
Yes, COVID is undefeated.
COVID's been beating them this year already.
That's true. Quickly, last thoughts before we wrap up this segment. I just want to quickly go through the rankings this week. Florida dropped to 10. A&M goes from unranked up to 11th. Miami dropped down 6 spots to 13. Cincy jumped up a couple spots. Notre Dame's up to 4. North Carolina's at 5. Oklahoma State's in the top 6. Any surprises from the rankings real quick, Alex?
Don't know how you can have Florida 10 and A&M 11 when A&M just beat Florida. But that's really the only shock. I think everywhere else, I think, is about where it should be. I would drop Notre Dame. I would drop Notre Dame a lot. I think right now North Carolina should be 4, not Notre Dame. But, yeah.
A&M's only loss was to number 2 Alabama, so it's kind of like, what?
Yep. Yeah.
Kyle, any surprises from these rankings?
The biggest surprise I see is all the way down at the bottom at 25. They put USC in the top 25, and they haven't even come close to even playing a game. I think it just shows that how many teams are like 2-2, and they don't want to start putting 2-2, 1-2 teams in the top 25. And then, of course, Florida, Texas A&M. Texas A&M should be ranked higher.
I mean,
they jumped Cincinnati to 8.
Yeah, American represent. But as you mentioned, there's 6 teams that haven't even played a game that are in the top 25. So it's kind of like,
ridiculous.
What are we waiting for? I don't know. It's just like, is it bias? Is it like, oh, well, we know these teams are going to be good?
It's definitely bias. If you have a Power 5 sticker on your helmet, you're fine. Yep.
All right, well, noted. I'm going to transfer to a Power 5 school then and put it on my helmet.
There you go.
BYU is also 15. They're a solid 4-0.
They are.
BYU is actually they've looked like one of the best teams in college football so far this year. Mm-hmm. I can't wait for that matchup against Army. It's going to be really
That's a good game.
Got canceled, but
of course
it was supposed to be week 3, but then they got all of BYU got COVID, and they haven't rescheduled the game yet.
And they're still 4-0.
Yep.
That goes to show you COVID-19 will always win, and hopefully it doesn't ruin what's coming up in our next segment, because when we come back, I'm going to be joined by Kennedy, and we're going to talk about the NBA Finals and talk about the NFL. Stay with us.
To be a Saints fan right now.
Dude,
I'd be so
guys.
mad. I can't believe that ridiculous no call.
Bro, I'm puzzled. If they would have made that call, who do you think would have been in the Super Bowl? The Saints would have been in the Super Bowl. Come on now.
The refs, they need to be punished.
Oh, hey guys. Did you see my missed call last week? Could have sent that team to the championship. I guess not.
I can't take this anymore.
What's up with this guy?
And welcome back to Hitting the Field. Kennedy now joins us to break down the NBA Finals and some NFL action. Kennedy, first off, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate that. So for those of you that live under a rock, last night was Game 6 of the NBA Finals, where LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers captured their 17th NBA title, tying the Boston Celtics. Kennedy, what were your thoughts overall from the series?
Well, overall, I think it was just a great series. I think even though the Lakers won the actual championship, both teams won in this sense because the Heat played really well with what they were given. So big congrats to the Lakers, but overall, this was a really good series to watch.
I mean, yeah, we were talking a bit before if the Heat were healthy. It probably goes 7, and the Heat might even take it. But, Alex, what were your overall takeaways from the Lakers title?
I mean, I think my biggest takeaway from the series is Jimmy Butler and how he performed on the big stage. I mean, 26.2 points a game, 9.8 assists, 8.3 rebounds, and then 2 steals. He was incredible. He rivaled LeBron in every statistical category. So big props to LeBron for getting number 4, but Jimmy Butler balled.
I mean, we could argue, Kennedy, that Jimmy Butler had the best game of the series in Game 5.
Definitely. And I think, honestly, just kind of looking at Jimmy Butler's career, this might have been his best season overall. Maybe not numbers-wise, because we know that he really did perform in Chicago. However, I think just him submitting to what the Heat organization had and trusting his teammates, and you could tell that he was enjoying playing with this team and was really leaving everything out on the court. And then, of course, in Game 4, he had the 40-point triple-double. So we really saw that Jimmy Butler is really not just perfecting his craft, but really showing why he is a superstar and reminding us who he is and who he really could have been if he had really just humbled himself and submitted to an organization.
Or maybe he did this intentionally to get to where the destination he wanted. Probably not, but it's always a storyline you could argue. Now, I want to quickly talk on Game 5. Alex, why was Danny Green getting so much slack for that shot? Can someone explain to me?
So I get it. Danny Green did not have a good playoffs. I mean, he was very bad. He was shooting 25% in the playoffs from 3. But I think I said it on Twitter, LeBron made the right play, but if I'm LeBron, I'm taking that shot. I'm not trusting Danny Green to hit that. But to go as like him and his fiance were getting death threats, like that's obviously not okay. There's no reason for that. It's a basketball game. But I think the criticism for Danny Green is warranted. He did not perform well. But to take it as far as death threats is ridiculous.
Now, I think to say that this is not Lakers fans. These are LeBron fans, because I think we've seen it from everywhere on the Heat and stuff. Like, it's just the LeBron fans that do this. Kennedy, did Danny Green deserve some slack? I mean, obviously not death threats, but did he deserve some criticism?
Well, I think the biggest criticism that comes from it is just knowing that Danny Green has won championships. He's been in really great organizations with the Raptors and the Spurs. So they were expecting more out of him. However, we know that this is a very mixed team. We have a lot of veterans in Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, just a lot of different components in this team. So we can't put everything on Danny Green when we have AD and LeBron, who are your main contributors. And you do have a lot of different stars, too, within this team. So I think to put it on Danny Green is the easy thing because he missed one shot and, pushed it to a Game 6, which obviously we see the result. But I don't really think he should have gotten the full force of the hate.
I mean, Danny Green went back-to-back, and no one's even talking about that. I mean, I feel like that's like as you said, you had he played pretty well in the Raptors, granted for his role. But my favorite thing I saw on Twitter was if LeBron took that shot, everyone would have sent a picture with Danny Green in a red circle and saying, why did LeBron not pass it? Because Danny Green was wide open. So it's like, if he made the shot, he's a hero and no one says anything. But if LeBron shoots it and misses, everyone's going to be like, oh, Danny Green's wide open, LeBron's selfish. So it's like a double-edged sword. LeBron also capturing MVP. Kennedy, did he deserve it, or was it someone else's to earn, or do you think LeBron got what he deserved?
I think that we kind of knew LeBron was going to get it, not winning the regular season MVP and then just coming in. And I think it's more than just numbers for LeBron. Of course, we know that he's putting up numbers and he's doing everything, but it's what he does on and off the court. His leadership is really what grounded a lot of these players. I mean, bringing Anthony Davis in, of course, I think Anthony Davis is probably second behind LeBron as far as MVP goes, and of course regular season as well. But I think just seeing that LeBron could ground these players and take players, of course, that played in the league years ago, like Rajon Rondo, and make the best out of them really shows why he won MVP and just shows his leadership skills. So for him, it's the numbers, and it's also just the leadership that makes him the MVP.
Alex, would you agree with that?
I agree with that. I think the only other player you could make a case for is Anthony Davis, but I think without LeBron there, I don't think the Lakers win that ring. LeBron's the glue. I think LeBron is kind of the actual coach in a way. So without him, they don't win that. So you got to give him the MVP.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it last week on our NBA segment. We had said, is, Frank Vogel versus Eric Spoelstra, or is it LeBron James versus Eric Spoelstra? So, I mean, it goes to show, whatever team LeBron's on, he runs the show. And I think that's been a common storyline for his career. Quickly, though, looking at the Heat's future, Kennedy, is the future bright for the Miami Heat?
Definitely, because we see their consistency. We can tell what they need. They have a lot of players going into free agency within the offseason, so they know exactly what they need now. Maybe it's a center, an actual center, instead of just trying to play Bam as their center and not having a backup. Maybe it's getting better guards, but whatever it is that they decide to do within offseason, I think that they've shown why they were here. They're a consistent organization and they're a gritty team. And they also just showed us what it means to just play basketball, because nobody really thought coming into the season that this would be the Heat in the final, especially coming in as the 5 seed. But honing into basketball and just submitting to everything that the NBA had within the bubble, they showed us that they're going to be able to compete for years to come.
Well, you had mentioned get a center. Are they going to try to make a run and try to get Giannis this offseason?
We'll see. We'll see. If they have the cap space, we'll see.
Alex, any closing thoughts on the Heat?
If the Heat can grab Giannis somehow, they're going to be insane. And I don't think anybody beats that team. But I don't know if they have the cap space for it. I think the Heat's future is there. It's really bright. I mean, Tyler Hero, if he can become more consistent, he's going to be great. And Jimmy Butler's there, and he looks like he's now one of the top 10 players in the league right now. So if they can just keep that core together, they got something special brewing in Miami.
Yeah, it's a bright future for Miami sports. And as we mentioned, LeBron, congratulations, ring 4. Anthony Davis finally gets the ring. He's well-deserved. He's played a great career so far. And, so now we're going to move over to the NFL, where the Las Vegas Raiders took down the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in an exciting game, 40-32. Derek Carr looked like a franchise quarterback for once. And, the Chiefs, it was kind of interesting to lose at home at that. Alex, overall, how good are the Raiders now this season as they sit at 3-2? Are they now competing for the AFC West?
I don't know if they're competing for the AFC West yet. I'm still giving that to the Chiefs, even though they beat the Chiefs. But let's talk about Derek Carr. I mean, dude's now outdueled Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes within 3 weeks of each other. Like, he's going crazy. I'd never expected Derek Carr to be the guy outdueling Patrick Mahomes. I thought if anyone was going to do it this year, it was going to be Watson or Lamar. But to see it be Derek Carr is kind of impressive.
Kennedy, what were your thoughts from the game?
It was a close one at the half. I remember watching and I was like, oh my goodness, well, the Chiefs are coming back and they're just going to win this game. And then, of course, the Raiders took it over. So I think, like Alex was saying, you didn't expect it to be Derek Carr to be the guy, especially to outplay Mahomes. But I think he did a really great job. And I think definitely taking advantage of those third downs was the biggest thing for the game, and just kind of keeping Mahomes off the field. So they really burned the clock, and Derek Carr really did look like a franchise quarterback because his back's kind of against the wall. Everybody has their thoughts on him. So I think he played really well with what he did last game.
Yeah, and I mean, as you guys said, the Chiefs were looking to come back. When I sent the text about, what we're going to talk about, they were up 16, and I'm like, there's 5 minutes left. And next thing you know, I'm like, the Chiefs are coming back. I'm going to have to send a correction because we're not going to be talking. We're going to be talking about the Chiefs' comeback at this rate. But someone I want to highlight on the Raiders is Nelson Aguilar, a former Eagle who could not catch the football and all of a sudden is getting a touchdown a game with the Raiders. Alex, why? Why couldn't he do that in Philly?
So as a Cowboy fan, I love that he's now catching football. It's just not for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
But him and Ruggs, Ruggs looked really good. He had two receptions for 118 yards. So Ruggs is balling, Aguilar, and I think that takes some of the pressure off Aguilar. He doesn't have to be the guy. He can just kind of catch when he's called upon. But with Aguilar not catching in Philly, I'm kind of shocked that he now knows how to catch a football.
Now, Kennedy, you had mentioned Derek Carr had outdueled Mahomes. Earlier in the week, Derek Carr was asked about the rivalry between the Raiders and the Chiefs, and Derek Carr simply said, well, it's not a rivalry if we don't win any games. So do you now think that there's a rivalry between these two teams?
Definitely. We know that Derek Carr's record within the Chiefs before this game was 2-10. So, like I said, his back's against the wall because he's not looking to, fall into that stereotype that he's not the best quarterback in the NFL. Especially given the Raiders franchise. But I think the rivalry continues as far as the competitiveness between these teams. But I think that looking at how Mahomes played, it's not over. The Raiders aren't just going to completely beat the Chiefs next time. I think that we still have hope. And we, like Alex was saying, Chiefs still have it in the West. So I think there's definitely a rivalry building between these teams, but it's a little bit too early to say which team takes which.
That's fair. Now, we talked about the AFC West. Now we're going to go over to talk about a former AFC West quarterback, and Phillip Rivers and the Cleveland Browns faced off yesterday, and the Cleveland Browns kind of were in control the whole game. I don't really think it was close. Phillip Rivers looked absolutely horrendous. Alex, the Browns are 4-1, and they look great. Odell is catching the football this season. Are the Browns a threat to the Ravens in the AFC North?
I don't know. Like, I was sitting here thinking about it yesterday. I was like, are the Browns good? Like, in my head, I cannot picture the Browns being good because they have been terrible my entire life.
Yep.
So to see them at 4-1 is like, what? But like you said, Odell's catching the football again.
And throwing the football.
Yeah, and he's throwing the ball. And so is Jarvis. But Baker doesn't look terrible. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say Baker's elite, but he don't look bad anymore. Chubb's on the IR, but Chubb has been balling before that. So they definitely they have the players. They had the players last year, but they couldn't put it together. So to see them put it together now is kind of cool. But I wouldn't say they're a threat to the Ravens yet.
That's fair. Kennedy, what did you think of the Browns game yesterday?
Definitely, like Alex was saying, we saw like a lot. Can you hear that? Sorry.
That's okay. Technical difficulties. Zoom likes to act up sometimes.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely like Alex was saying, we saw that the Browns, they played really well with what they had. Like you were saying, playing without Chubbs. It's kind of like Baker Mayfield has to win in the air because they can't rush. And then just looking at the Colts being the number one defensive team in the league, I think with what the Browns were doing, we could have seen a lot more. Like you were saying, Odell is finally catching balls. Then Jarvis Landry playing really well. So I think that the Browns do have a lot of potential, and they show that they can play well together, but I don't think that it puts them in a position where we should really be on the lookout, especially seeing how they did play against the Ravens, and then we kind of know how that one went. So it's not really like we're looking out for them, but we should.
But, you can go to say, like, the Ravens did not look that good against the Bengals yesterday because, Lamar Jackson played terrible. I went against him in fantasy, and I have a chance to win because Lamar Jackson didn't do anything. But you'd mentioned Nick Chubb's on the IR, but imagine losing Nick Chubb and then your backup's Kareem Hunt. Like, I think you're in a good spot if you're the Browns, right, Alex?
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely in a good spot. Having Kareem Hunt to replace Chubb is pretty nice. I think most teams would take that. Most teams would have Kareem Hunt as their starter.
I was going to say, granted Kareem Hunt's background on what happened with his domestic
Yes.
abuse, he would be starting on 90% of the NFL teams.
Yeah, if he was a good person, he could go anywhere and start. But the Browns are really impressive. But the Steelers and the Ravens both they still look better than them.
All right. So overall, I just want a yes or no from both of you. Kennedy, I'll start with you. Are the Browns a playoff team?
I'm gonna go with yes.
Yes.
Playing like how they did last game, I think they can be a playoff team.
Alex?
No, I think they'll end up being the Browns again somehow.
Come on. We got to pull through for Cleveland sports once. No. Now, quickly, I do want to mention two things. Yesterday, even as an Eagles fan, I was very sad to see Dak Prescott go down with a very terrible ankle injury. Real quick, Alex, I know you're a Cowboys fan. Did we see Dak play his final game in a Cowboy uniform?
I mean, as a Cowboy fan, I hope not. But knowing Jerry Jones and the type of person he is, yeah, I think Jerry Jones should do right by Dak and still sign him because I think he still can be Dak Prescott. But knowing Jerry, it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Kennedy, you think they'll give Dak the $40 million that he wants, or do you think that he's done in Dallas?
I'm hoping that they do. I'm personally a Dak Prescott fan, even though I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I do hope that they will give him his $40 million. But from the looks of it, like Alex was saying, it's not looking too bright for him.
Yeah, I mean, no one can hate Dak Prescott. He's such a good dude.
It's impossible.
I literally, when I saw it happen, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding. Like, it's Dak. Like, who doesn't love Dak? He's been through so much, and it sucks to see him go out because, again, the Cowboys need him. But, Andy Dalton came through for him, delivered the game-winning drive, and, the Cowboys sit atop first place at 2-3. Congratulations to the Cowboys. And then real quick, finally, the Atlanta Falcons reportedly are firing Dan Quinn. It's supposed to be made official today, if not made official by the time the show goes live. Kennedy, it's a little late than never, I guess. They've blown multiple games. Was it finally the right call, or is it too late at this point?
I think it's the right call. I mean, any team has a room to grow and to really rebuild. So I think that even though it's a little bit late, some people might argue, I think that it's still the right call because this gives the team an opportunity to really rebuild and figure out what type of direction they want to go in.
Yeah, maybe even fix this season. Alex, I mean, finally Dan Quinn's gone. Can the Falcons finally breathe?
I mean, yeah, they got rid of Dan Quinn and their GM. So, I mean, it's a right step. It's a step in the right direction. It's definitely late. I mean, he should have been gone probably after last season and then should have been gone again after the Cowboys game. Yep, after the Cowboys game. But he's finally gone. And I don't know if you guys saw, but as he was leaving the field on Sunday, cameraman got a picture of him throwing up the peace sign. And so I think he knew he was getting fired after they lost. 0-5 is not a good look.
No, it's not. And then quickly, the Miami Dolphins beat the 49ers yesterday. So maybe Kyle Shanahan might go out the door. He blew a Super Bowl. Not that that's going to happen. They have a lot of injuries, so I'm not going to even sit here and throw the 49ers under the bus. But I really, really wanted to talk about this because the NFL is a disaster with this. COVID-19 is kind of ruining the league. I mean, you saw Melvin Gordon tweet yesterday, I'm hot right now because they decided to cancel the Patriots-Broncos game and then move it to next week and then move the Dolphins-Broncos game to another week. I swear, and Kennedy, I would please correct me if I'm wrong on this. I feel like the NFL is blindfolding themselves and just clicking and dragging games to different weeks. Is that not what it looks like from the outside looking in?
From the outside, yeah, I have to agree with that because, I mean, even comparing it to the NBA and seeing they finished the finals with 0 positive tests within players because they had a protocol and they had a plan. But with the NFL, we're seeing that it looks like they're just kind of hoping that everybody else follows their own standards and that they're all following protocols within themselves, but they're not really enforcing it. And they're also not testing as often as maybe they should have or could have. So definitely looks like they're just kind of turning the blind eye and just hoping that everybody else is doing what they're supposed to. And then when we get to game week, if we have to reschedule, I guess this is what we have to do. And like we are right now, we're rescheduling a lot of games, but we're going to have to do something in order to have a season and to have a consistent schedule.
Alex, what have been your overall thoughts on Goodell and the team situation?
Goodell saw this pandemic break out in like March, and was just like, it's not going to affect the NFL. Like he's acting like like the NFL is like just immune to COVID. Like the NFL, the pandemic affects everybody, but not us, not the NFL, not the mighty NFL. So I mean, when the NFL continues to act like COVID's not happening, this is going to happen. You're going to have outbreaks. You're going to have games get canceled. You're going to have games moved around, and they fumbled. They fumbled the bag big time with this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but what they should have done was moved all the AFC teams to one side, all the NFC teams to one side, played a 14-game season, so you play your division opponents twice, and you play 2 other divisions. And so there's 14 games. You still have the 17 weeks in case of something like an outbreak happening, and then you can just go from there. Does that not sound like a better idea that I just came up with in literally 17 seconds?
But see, that makes too much sense.
Oh, okay.
You can't with the NFL. If it makes too much sense, they won't do it.
That's fair. But Kennedy, do you see the season possibly just getting shut down at this rate, or do you think the NFL is just gonna, close their eyes and go, nope, no COVID here?
I think it's a tough one because health-wise, we see that it is affecting players, and of course, like I said, scheduling, it's messing up a lot of our schedules as far as watching. However, I think given the pandemic and how much money they have lost, I don't see them just completely shutting down a season because we need the ratings. We need people watching football. And it's also giving people something to watch, especially now the NBA finals are done. So I think this is giving a lot of people a little bit more of a positive thing to keep the season going for, even though there's a lot of negative involved in it. So I think that I don't see them shutting down an entire season just for the health of the players, which sounds completely terrible, but I just don't. I think it's a money thing, and I think that they're just going to continue their season as they've been doing right now.
I mean, yeah, you just mentioned, the NBA just ended. The MLB's got 3 series left between the Championship Series and the World Series. The NFL is going to be the headline of the sports world. Alex, they need to fix it. What do you think the fix is? Canceling the season or just actually having a plan?
I mean, if you cared about the players, you would cancel the season because this is affecting them now. But they clearly don't care about the players. Like Kennedy said, this is all about money. And they knew that a potential outbreak might happen because they booked the Super Bowl hotels for 4 weeks instead of 2 like they normally do. So they have a whole month in February where they have all the hotels in Tampa. They knew that this could happen, but they didn't want to do anything about it other than book hotels for longer.
I mean, you guys have both mentioned it's about the money. Can they not think about my fantasy leagues? Like, I'm a disaster. I paid into these leagues, and my players can't play. Granted, health of the players is a lot more important. Well, come on. Think about the gambling side of things. How many people are betting on games and then, oh, hey, this player, Cam Newton's out, so don't bet on the Patriots? Because I said it, the Patriots beat the Chiefs as Cam Newton plays because the Patriots actually looked really good in that game. I mean, a huge asterisk on the season. But I don't know. I say cancel the season. It probably should have never happened in the first place. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what Goodell and the NFL team does. Is what it is, I guess. Sports are more important than health, I guess. It's America for you. The NBA needs to get around the country, though. 172 games, no COVID. NBA, put them in charge.
Yes.
But I appreciate you guys coming through today. That was great talk about the finals and NFL. When I come back, we're going to deliver a little rant, and that's going to end it for this episode. We'll see you when we come back.
Good morning, fellas, except for Andre.
KG in the building.
James Harden's a stat pack.
Yeah, that is not. You're right.
He's the best scorer.
He has 120 straight points now. Bro, 120 straight points now. He doesn't pass.
All right, let's do this. Let's get down to business, guys.
He's still got Aaron Gordon, PJ Tucker, and them boys. Come on now.
What about Carl?
Tom Brady is the son.
Facts.
I think it's kind of special, though.
What? What are you talking about, man? Crazy, man.
I'll never say why.
This is your dad,
Welcome back to Hitting the Field. So glad you made it this far. Special shout out to Alex, Kyle, and Kennedy for joining me today. We had a great episode talking a lot of stuff. But it's that time of the episode. It's time to
rant, and I got to keep going on the NFL COVID policy. Like, it's ridiculous. It's getting out of hand. We keep having games canceled, and it's like we're just playing blind chicken on when to reschedule them. It's just you're moving one game to move another. It's messing up a lot of stuff from a business side, but also you have to look at like everything from a whole that makes money. I mean, you have players out that probably don't want to play the season. You have players coming out saying that the season should have never happened. And yes, on like a jokingly but serious side, it is screwing up my fantasy team because, you know, I had to drop my kicker, and then I picked up a new kicker that only got 3 points. So like if I lose this week, I'm going to be upset, and honestly, I might ask Goodell for my $30 back for my fantasy league. Yeah, $30 is a lot. I don't make a lot of money. I'm a college student. That's all I got. But honestly, on a real note, Goodell, get it together. I was texting my friend Jake Goldberg last night, and it's like, it's ridiculous. The NFL has no plan. They're the biggest organization in the sporting like industry, and they have absolutely no plan. It's kind of sad, you know. So get it together, Goodell, before, you know, we fire you and get rid of you forever, which, you know, we should if we could, but you know what, is what it is. Also, Knights over here. Yep, play Memphis this week, 3:30, ABC. Go Knights, charge on. We'll see you there. Big dub, we need it. But other than that, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Hitting the Field. As always, it's been your host, Jaret Kappelman, and we will see you next Monday for another episode of HDF. See ya.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax.